Hey guys, welcome back to another impressions video, and today finally I'm gonna do an impressions on Batman Arkham Knight, a game that I beat actually a couple weeks ago, but I just didn't have the time to sit down and record a video up until now. So here's my impressions on this very long awaited game by many fans of the Batman series, Batman Arkham series. And this is actually the end of the trilogy of the Batman Arkham games by Rocksteady, which is the developer of the game. And but in reality, this is actually the fifth installment of the Batman Arkham games, if you count Batman Arkham Origins Blackgate, which was released originally for the Vita and the 3DS, and then it got a deluxe version that came out for the PS3, Wii U, PC, and all that. And then we also have Batman Arkham Origins, a game that I greatly enjoyed by Warner Brothers Montreal, I believe. So this is the final installment as far as Rocksteady, and in my opinion, it did not disappoint. I had a really good time with this game. I know there are a couple of mixed opinions out there as far as the game goes, but I had a really good time with this Batman Arkham game, to the point that I would rank it as one of the top games out of the 5 that have been released so far. But yeah, let's focus on the impressions on the game. Story-wise, I thought the story was pretty good. No spoilers here, obviously, but essentially the game takes a year after the events of Batman Arkham City, and this time around the main villain is Scarecrow, which at the beginning of the game he threatens the citizens of Arkham, or not Arkham, but Gotham City, to release these fear toxin that would, causes major, brain damage, I guess, to people, and it transforms them into, crazy lunatic people. So the entire city is evacuated, and this is kind of like, it plays along with the storyline, but also with the technical aspect of the game, because the entire Gotham City is basically empty. It doesn't have any regular citizens walking on the streets, which I know some people criticize that. I know there's a lot of people out there that keep saying that the Batman Arkham games are very, isolated. They need to have more, population, more regular people in them. But I believe that's more of a technical issue, and the reason why Rocksteady, they have to keep thinking of ways to, take out the, normal people out of the city and just leave the city up, up for the thugs that are around the streets. So that's how the storyline gets rid of the normal citizens, and again, this is probably because due to technical reasons, but it plays along with the story very nicely. But anyways, all the citizens are evacuated, but later on you learn that the threat of the fear toxin actually it's much bigger than you originally thought, which is why Batman decides to go all the way and stop Scarecrow, which in this game he's aided by this new villain called the Arkham Knight. Which I have to admit, I was not a pretty big fan of his. At the beginning of the game, I could not stand that particular villain. But as the game goes along, you basically keep chasing him, and you keep trying to find out the past about this particular character. Again, no spoilers, but I will just say that the story-wise, I saw the core twist of the game coming for a very long time, and I guessed it right. But despite being a very predictable twist, I would say that the story is very enjoyable, and I really enjoyed the ending portion of the game, how things unfold and how Rocksteady puts an ending to the entire trilogy, if you will. So also in the story, well, not part of the story, but there are the return of other villains throughout the game, such as Penguin, Two-Face, Riddler, obviously, but they're part of side missions. They're actually not, they don't have a major influence on the main story of the game. So with that being said, let's talk a little bit about the graphics, and hands down, this is one of the best looking console games released so far. Now I know I'm obviously talking about the PlayStation 4 version, not the PC version, which is apparently plagued by technical glitches and all kinds of bugs, to the point that Warner Brothers decided to pull the game out, the PC release out of the stores. So definitely the PC version was full of glitches and bugs, and it was really embarrassing for the publisher to remove the game. But apparently they're working on a fix, and in a couple of months they will release the PC version, which for some reason, I mean, they should have just delayed that version to begin with. Yeah, if you guys own a console, PS4, Xbox One, you're in the safe zone because this game runs pretty great. The frame rate obviously it's not 60 frames per second or anything like that, but the game does have a pretty steady 30 frames per second, and it's more than adequate for the type of game that this game is. Being an open world with a lot of enemies on the screen at the same time, a lot of special effects. I think the game handles the graphics, or at least the PS4 version handles everything pretty well. So I was very, very pleased with the graphics and the overall art direction. It kind of reminded me of Arkham Origins, where there is this contrast of colors and the dark themes of Gotham City. For example, you get to explore full Gotham City now, so you get to explore different regions in the city, and when you go to this like downtown area where there's a lot of neon lights and advertisements, you get to see that contrast of being a dark city with bright, colorful neon lights and things like that. So I thought that was a very good looking part of the game, the environment, and it gave the game a little bit of a variation when it came to showing off the scenery of the game. Let's see. Next up, let's talk a little bit about the gameplay. This game is open world, much like Arkham City and Arkham Origins. And the good thing here is that the cities, basically most of the city is fully unlocked from the beginning. You can go anywhere you'd like, and the city is absolutely huge. Obviously, speaking of gameplay, this game introduces the Batmobile, which is one of your modes of transportation around the city, which is pretty useful because there are no shortcuts or not quick travels options, which is fine because gliding through the city, whether you're gliding through the city or using the Batmobile, it's pretty fun navigating and exploring Gotham City. I do have to say that a lot of people complain about the inclusion of the Batmobile. Not so much the inclusion, but the execution of the use of the Batmobile in the game. And I do have to say that at first I was a little bit hesitant, and I was a bit of a hater as far as the Batmobile, because in this game I was under the impression that you would get inside the car and then start shooting people as you're moving at full speed, which you can do in the chase missions in the game. But the main focus of the Batmobile when it comes to combat and battle, it's a tank mode, basically, in which you have to basically just very slow. You're basically not moving at all. You're just strafing to avoid enemy fire, and then you're locking in with your missiles and different types of weapons, and you're shooting at the enemies. Once I got to understand how the tank mode worked, I thought it was a pretty entertaining sort of. It feels like a mini game actually, because it's so much different from the regular gameplay of the game. The only problem with that is that those combat tank missions, if you want to call it that, get overused quite a bit, and I can't help but to think that the developers did this on purpose to showcase actually that new element in gameplay, which is the Batmobile. So a lot of people got frustrated with the, I guess, overall excessive use of the Batmobile, but for me, I got used to it, and sure, it would have been nice if they toned down the use of the Batmobile a little bit. But again, I had fun exploring the city with the Batmobile and using its different gadgets and features that are upgraded as you progress through the game. So, in my opinion, the Batmobile a very welcome addition, and it just adds to that personality of the game and the personality of the superhero that it's Batman. So yeah, exploring the city, I do have to say, even though you have the Batmobile, I prefer to use the flying or gliding method, if you want to call it that, using the bat claw and just jumping from roof to roof. That was my preferred method of exploring and traveling through the city, because you just feel like a superhero. You're Batman, you're gliding through the skies of Gotham City, and it's really fun just having an overview from the top. Sorry about that, guys, the video got cut off. I was talking about, my computer froze, so but anyways, I was talking about how I prefer to glide over driving the Batmobile, but let's continue talking about the gameplay. And obviously this game has the traditional free flow combat system, which, you know, in my opinion is, you know, one of my favorite combat systems out of any video game of all time. Don't, you know, what's not broken, there is no need to fix it. This is the same old, you know, combat system that has been in place since Batman Arkham Asylum, with a few tweaks, with a few new moves thrown here and there, but for the most part it's your typical combo type of system with, you know, using counters and using all your gadgets at your disposal. And of course, the longer your combos, the more variation you have in your combos, the more points you get, and you can use those points to upgrade your, you know, your armor or your Batmobile and or your gadgets and things like that. So a little bit of slight RPG elements, if you want to call it that, in upgrading your, you know, your armor and things like that. So combat system fantastic, although I did feel like it was a little bit slower this time around, which is, I guess, good if you're trying to pull off greater combos and things like that. I felt like the time window to counter the enemy's moves in previous games was a little bit shorter, but that's just my opinion. It could be just, you know, my impression. The inclusion of new enemies, I think, helps a little bit in keeping the combat fresh, because this time around there are medics as far as enemies go, and it's really important to focus on those guys first, because if you don't kill them, they can revive other regular enemies throughout, you know, while you're fighting enemies. And when you're fighting like 20 or 30 people at the same time, sometimes it can be a little bit of a challenge to get to those medics with all the confusion and all the people trying to, you know, kick your ass. So I really enjoy the inclusion of medics. I think it really allows you to, you have to be worried, and you have to be you have to think a little bit more as far as your strategy on who to tackle or who to defeat first and things like that. Obviously there are the predator sections of the game, which is like the stealth portions of the game, and to be honest, I'm starting to get a little bit I guess sick of those. I know a lot of people love those stealth portions, but this game has a lot of them. In fact, I think this game has more stealth-based portions than your regular combat, you know, hand-to-hand combat portions. So, in all honesty, I was just trying to rush through the stealth portions of the game, because, you know, by this time, I think I'm a little bit. I have a little bit of a fatigue when it comes to those stealth, you know, parts in the game. But, you know, they're there, and it's good to have them because it keeps the gameplay a little bit fresh and a little bit varied throughout the game. Then you have also your AR missions, which is kind of like your challenge rooms in the past. But that's one of the negatives in the game, actually, that they removed the challenge, you know, missions that you were able to play beforehand. And it's kind of like, you know, by them removing the challenge mode, it's almost like, you know, Capcom removing the mercenary modes in a Resident Evil game. It's almost at this point an integral part of the game, and it's a shame to see that mode being taken away, which in my opinion it should have stayed there. And again, the AR missions are there, but they don't feel the same, you know, like the proper challenge rooms. Now, as far as speaking of side things to do and side quests, this game has a ton of them, and if you guys want to get a platinum trophy, be ready to invest 60 to 80 hours, because in order to get the platinum trophy, obviously you have to complete all the side missions, and there's a ton of them, with the most grindy one being the Riddler trophies, which there are, I believe, 243 scattered throughout the entire game, and some of them are easy, some of them are, you know, hidden throughout the environment, but some of them require you to think through and solve some puzzles before you can get the Riddler trophies. And yeah, that'll take a while. I did get, if I saw a Riddler trophy, what I would do is I was trying to get it, but even then, you know, I only got like 50 or 60 of them, and I have the vast majority left to attain. So that'll take me a while. But the other side missions, like I said, I was trying to complete them as I was going through the game. They're pretty varied. Some of them include, you know, destroying, you know, enemy checkpoints and things like that. I was able to complete a few of them to 100%, but like I said, there's a ton of side missions in this game, so the replay value is out of this world for this Batman game, which by the way has multiple endings as well. So depending on how much of the side missions you complete, you'll get a different ending. My recommendation is do not worry too much about that. Just play the game through. If you get the normal ending, that's fine, because the game puts you back into your main side mission mode, if you want to call it that. So you can tackle the side missions and then try and get the best ending after that. So don't worry too much about completing everything before you finally beat the game. Now what else? Let's see. The game has another negative that I would like to focus is the boss fights. This game doesn't have any memorable boss fights in my opinion. I think Arkham Origins takes the cake when it comes to not only story but also boss fights, which in my opinion it was a little bit of a letdown in this game. Soundtrack, it was fantastic, your typical Batman tunes, but what takes the cake as far as the soundtrack or the sound department in this game is the dialogue. The voice dialogue in this game is fantastic. The NPCs have multiple lines. You can keep talking to an NPC and he will have spoken dialogue on different lines. You keep talking to them, they will say something different. So a ton of attention to detail was put into the dialogue in this game. You can talk to just about any NPC in the game. They all have different lines, they all have different voice actors and things like that. So the game has a fantastic sound overall. So I guess I covered everything. Overall, I would say I'm very pleased with this game. I think I'm going to do a Batman Arkham series discussion in which I'm going to rank all the Batman games since I played all of them and I beat all of them. I think I'm going to do a separate video ranking my least favorite to my most favorite Batman Arkham games. So stay tuned to see where this game stays on the list. But definitely, if you guys have a PS4 or an Xbox One, get this game because there's a ton of content. There's a lot of things to explore, and I think it's a very, very solid entry with a pretty decent open world design that even if you're not a Batman fan, I think you guys will enjoy the game. So that's it for now. Hopefully you guys enjoyed the video. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next time.